the perspectives of Kolkatans have really changed. They've become much more kind of Americanized in a sense. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to notice that.
Well, a lot of that, I guess we have to face the fact that people die, so there's kind of generations of people who were in Calcutta in 77, 87, 97 who are no longer with us, so a kind of way of living has gradually disappeared. And the way of living, I suspect, that's disappeared is the life of the mind to some extent, because Calcutta prided itself, stubbornly prided itself, on being an intellectual city.
Center of culture.
Center of culture.
Yes.
It had a very, and the middle class in Calcutta had a huge influence on the way the city is. And I remember a friend of mine, R.P. Gupta, who was a great Calcuttan and a very charming, interesting man, saying that the problems of Calcutta could never be solved unless a way was found of making the concrete abstract, by which he meant you would never get better sewers unless you could have a long discussion late at night about sewers.
Yeah.
And that was never likely to happen because it was too concrete, too specific a thing. Yes. It was much better to talk about Marx's, second Brumaire or whatever.
The theory rather than the practical.
Yes, yes. So that was said, it is perhaps a bit unfair on Calcuttans, but nonetheless, they were, I think it's right to say, the first middle class in Asia, in the sense that they were kind of Western professions. The women folk took up things like knitting and watercolour painting and so on, which made them very attractive to me, because again, it was partly kind of moralism of it which was attractive. There was always conversations about morality in Calcutta. You might say, does it matter? You can talk about morality forever. Does it change your behaviour? Perhaps not. But there was a kind of feeling that right and wrong mattered here.
Right.
It got very complicated. I mean, the whole question of whether you should use a man-hauled rickshaw or not was a big thing. I mean, people used to talk, say, my wife, for instance, who was a Bengali, who is a Bengali, no longer my wife, would never take one, whereas my former mother-in-law would take one. And it was kind of interesting arguments about this and the rights and wrongs of it.
Right.
And I think that kind of Calcutta, I suspect, is slowly disappearing.
I think during that time period that you were here, probably there were only a couple of maybe 1, 2 TV stations that were...
Well, there was two, I think of India then as a place of two kinds of car and one kind of television station. There was the government division and there was the ambassador of the Fiat.
Yes.
So there wasn't a tremendous amount of choice. Choices had always held that was the thing we must always aim for. I could argue with that, but there wasn't a choice then. So it was, and the Soviet Union was still there then, there was still the Cold War then, and all these things have changed, and in fact China suddenly became a roaraway capitalist success, one of the great paradoxes of modern life, disabled a lot of intellectual conversation in Calcutta, I think. I mean, how did you square these things?
Yeah,
Yes.
You can't really be a pure Marxist. Unless you're a revolutionary, which is the other...
Maybe unwise me to mention this, it's a long subject, but I mean the fact was when the Marxist government here tried to become a bit like China and tried to have factories in Nandigram and the other places, it just escaped me, the free enterprise zone, the industrial zone, or car factory, it came across terrific opposition, and eventually it crumbled. So it can't be like China anyway, because of land reform and all kinds of other things. We have a kind of empowerment here which China doesn't have.